So again, welcome. My name is Lynn, and I'm a naturopath and a wellness specialist here in the Plano, Texas area, which is near Dallas-Fort Worth. I know we have some people around the country on the call today, and we welcome you from your various different time zones, and especially the East Coast folks. Thank you for being up a little later with us this time for class. So I'm really excited about this opportunity to share with you, and I have a very personal story that I'm going to share, and then an opportunity to help those of us on the call and those that you share this information with some more details on how we can all work together to improve brain health. So again, chatting will be the best way to get questions in, and we will do that at the end of the presentation. So please feel free to chat those questions in, and you can find that in your toolbar on the Zoom link itself. Quick disclaimer or two, got to get the legal stuff out of the way. So I'm going to move through to the next one. Our webinar is not intended to provide medical advice. We do not diagnose, cure, treat anything. What we do is simply share information and hope that the information that we share is something that can move you on your journey of health. So I have to start my presentation with this classy couple. And I want you to, this is very important, I want you all to remember, take a look at this lady. Her beautiful hair, very, very important. It'll come up later in our presentation. And I just want to make sure that you make special note of them. You're going to get to look at them for just a minute. You know, over the last 8 years, I have had an experience to directly watch malfunctioning brains. As I walked two parents, not just one, but two, through their journey of vascular dementia. And that would be these two right here, Millie and Jim. This condition was a result of some minor strokes that each of them suffered many years prior, and one of them in 2009, the other in 2010. My journey with them came to an end in September, just about 6 months ago. They died 4 days apart. And I guess it's still a little bit raw, but they taught me so much in that journey. Here's a picture of them that we used. They died. Dad died on September 15th, and Mom just 4 days later on September 19th. And this picture was at their double memorial service. I'd like you to take a really close look at this picture. I asked my husband, I said, he put this picture on Facebook. I said, how did you put that amazing background of the gates of heaven on their picture? And he said to me, I didn't do that. What are you talking about? And so I showed him the picture. And what we realized is that this is the reflection off the glass. And that is the doors of the church, and that's the gates on the doors, and that's their memorial picture and its reflection. So it's just it's a beautiful thing. So I had to share it. It was a little difficult to get through that just now, but it's okay. It's part of the journey. So some of the material we're going to share with you tonight, I got to tell you, I learned it just one day after Mom's passing. Some other material we're going to share, I learned about 6 weeks after. So if you've walked someone through a journey like this, you know it can be really difficult to watch a brain deteriorate like that. It's also natural to wonder, could this happen to me? In this case, it was my mom and my stepdad. So you might think, well, you only have one strike against Jillian. But the truth is, you know, we're going to share a lot of evidence-based research tonight that shows that there's actually a lot that all of us can do to make a bigger difference in our brain's trajectory index for optimal aging. So just need you to know that throughout this presentation, we are going to share a number of links. So please know you don't have to put in the chat, oh, can you send me that link? As a registered participant of this event, you are going to automatically get all of the links that we use to create the presentation. So let's move on. And what we're going to do first is we're going to do a little biology. You're going to go back in time, back to school. We're going to learn quite a bit about what is the brain. And then we're going to cover some ways that you all can learn a little bit more to make a difference for yourself, maybe for family members, maybe for clients that you know. So the brain is an organ that acts as the main control center for the body, and it's really complex. We have no idea how complex it is. It controls intelligence, it controls our senses, body movement, and behavior. It only weighs about 3 pounds. Isn't that amazing? Which is about 2% of our body weight. And within the last 10 years, we've begun to understand more about the brain than the past centuries combined. And a term we use a lot now in our practice at accesscompletewellness.com is neuroplasticity. Basically, your brain can rewire and learn things, even if parts of the brain die or are damaged. So the brain can be divided into 3 sections. Those 3 sections are the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain. So I'm sure you can draw the conclusion of where these parts are located. So let's go a little deeper into these sections. Again, I've got to cover the anatomy so we can get to the rest of it for you. So the 3 sections of the brain house different parts of the brain. One is the forebrain, and in the forebrain, what we've got is the largest and most developed part of the human brain, and that is the cerebrum. You're probably thinking back to biology now and going, oh, I remember that, hearing about that. Then we have the midbrain, and the midbrain houses the uppermost part of the brain stem. And then we have the hindbrain, and that contains the upper part of the spinal cord, and then the brainstem, and then a tissue called the cerebellum. So the 3 primary parts of the brain are the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. Now we're going to break this down a little bit more. So the cerebrum is divided into 4 lobes: the frontal, the parietal, the temporal, and the occipital. Now if you've attended the Body Talk Access class, you already know how to balance those parts of the brain, which is very good. You guys are good graduates. The cerebrum is the largest part of the brain, and it is composed of right and left hemispheres. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And then let's move on to the brain stem. And the brain stem includes the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla. And then the cerebellum, and the cerebellum is located under the cerebrum. And between the cerebrum and the brainstem lies 2 parts of the brain called the thalamus and the hypothalamus. These are really, really important, and we're going to talk about them in a minute. Just trying to give you the bigger picture as we layer it down. And then the cerebral cortex coats the surface of the cerebrum and the cerebellum. So let's move on and learn a little bit more about some brain functions, because this is where it starts to get good. So when we talk about the forebrain, or the cerebrum, which I just mentioned, the cerebrum in the frontal lobe holds the memories. And that's what allows you to plan, imagine, and think. And then we have the parietal lobe, and that translates our senses: touch, vision, hearing, speech, reasoning, emotions. And it's also really important for spatial orientation and navigation. I'm just going to take a second and ask a question. What would life be like without your senses? Have you ever thought about that? If you couldn't hear, I watched my stepdad struggle with that. What if you couldn't see? What if food had no taste? Life would be pretty boring. Now moving on again, we're talking about the forebrain and the cerebrum. We've got the temporal lobe, and that processes sound and language, and that houses the hippocampus and the amygdala, which play roles in memory and emotion. Now the amygdala, I'll ask you a question. That's responsible for rage, anger. Sometimes we have what's called an amygdala hijack. That's kind of what road rage is all about. So few things to think about there. And then the occipital lobe, and that's going to be near the back, and that's responsible for visual processing. So it allows you to recognize your friends, read a book, do all those great things that you get to enjoy with a healthy functioning brain. Now we're going to move on to the midbrain and talk about the brainstem. Now the brainstem, this is super important to most of us, if not all of us. The brainstem relays information between the brain and the whole rest of the body. It's your automatic functions like breathing, heart rate, body temperature. They're all controlled in the brainstem. Now, just a quick question. How many of you wouldn't be with us today if you had to remember to breathe on your own? Or to have your heart beat on its own? That's pretty incredible. It's really fascinating. So be grateful for sure for your brainstem, because that's what keeps you going when you forget to take care of yourself. Then we have the hindbrain, cerebellum. That's what coordinates muscle movement, motor control, posture, and balance. And I'm just wondering if anybody on this class right now might wonder, wouldn't it be nice to have better posture again? Maybe better balance? These are some things we'll talk about and have some offerings in some future classes around these. And then part of this hindbrain is the thalamus, which relays the sensory and the motor signals to the cortex. It's involved with regulating our consciousness, our sleep, and our alertness. I think you're starting to see how important the brain is and why brain health is so gosh darn important for us to take care of. And then, boy, probably my favorite part is the hypothalamus. That connects to the nervous system and the nervous system to the endocrine system. Now, why is this important? Oh my gosh. This controls so many of the hormones. I don't just mean estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. I mean all the other kinds that connect with the pituitary gland. We're talking all the fight or flight hormones. We're talking the sleep hormones. All of that is so important, and it's controlled by this little section called the hypothalamus. Absolutely fascinating that one little area can do so much. So what I want to do is move on and talk about what you all have probably heard of, left brain versus right brain. This came out in around 1981, left-right brain theory. It originated by a Nobel Prize winner named Roger W. Sperry. So a little while ago, I mentioned some people who might know how to balance part of their brain. We have a cortices technique. It's balancing left and right brain, making sure left and right brain are talking. That's going to be one of the links we're going to include for you as part of this presentation. It's phenomenal for getting your brain firing. It's phenomenal for calming. And so there'll be actually a video where you can watch, learn about the theory behind it, and then actually practice it. You'd be surprised at what it can do. So the human brain is divided into left and right hemispheres, and they're connected by a bundle of nerves called the corpus callosum. Now, the theories around left and right brain is that each side controls different thinking styles. So maybe some of you are in this class already know your left brain or your right brain, but let's dig a little deeper, and you can decide for yourself where you land if you've not heard of this before. So each side of the brain controls the opposite side of the body. So for example, the left brain controls all the muscles on the right side of the body and vice versa. So let me give you something to think about. Do you have a part of the body, left or right, that's a little more problematic than the other? It could be not that body part. It could be the opposite side brain has a connection problem to the body, has a injury. So something to think about. It may not actually be that your right knee is the problem. It could be something on the left side of the brain. So let's talk about left brain. So left brain thinkers, right? If you think you're a left brain thinker, I know I feel like I was a left brain thinker originally. These people are more logical, analytical, and objective. The traits of their left brain include language, logic, critical thinking, numbers, and reasoning. So how many of you think you're left brain, right? And then we have the right brain side. Now, these are the more intuitive, thoughtful, subjective sides. Some of their traits include facial recognition. These are the people who go, I don't know your name, but I met you 32 years ago. They're very good with emotional expression, music, reading, color, imagination, intuition, creativity. We need these people. They bring color to the world. They're awesome. So which one are you? Are you left brain or right brain? I know I've worked a lot of years to develop my right brain, and I think I'm doing a pretty good job of it nowadays. All right, so now you have gotten like the crash course on the brain. And believe me, every one of those sections of the brain could be volumes of books. That's how amazing the brain is. So why is the brain so important? A healthy brain functions quickly and automatically. So I'm going to share some things with you. 1 in 5 people in the US suffers from a neurological disorder. And those are diseases of the brain, the spine, and nerves connecting them. There are probably people on this call who are one of those 1 in 5. The National Institute of Neurological Disorders reports the following as common disorders. Neurogenetic diseases. This is things like Huntington's disease and muscular dystrophy. Huntington's disease is an issue where you have a lot of jerking movements, cognitive decline, psychiatric disorders. There's a lot that goes with it. We have developmental disorders, things like cerebral palsy. Also degenerative diseases of adult life, like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. There's metabolic diseases, things like Gaucher's disease, which is incorrect enzyme processes in place trying to break down fats that are so important to the brain. That's what that's about. And then there's cerebrovascular diseases like stroke and vascular dementia. Remember I mentioned that at the beginning with that classy couple I shared. Then there's traumas such as spinal cord and head injuries. And that's where this new neuroplasticity, this new neuroscience, which is not that new, it's a decade old or more, is so amazing to think that the brain can rewire around injuries. Then we have convulsive disorders, that's things like epilepsy, and even infectious diseases such as AIDS, and then brain tumors. So I want to take a deeper look into a few of these neurological disorders. We're certainly not going to hit all of them, but we're going to hit some of my most interesting ones. So dementia, it's considered a cerebrovascular disease, but it's not really a specific disease. It's more of a general term to describe a decline in mental ability. Dementia describes a wide range of symptoms, and for a condition to be considered dementia, at least 2 of the following need to be significantly impaired. So listen up. 1 would be memory. 1 is communication and language. Another is the ability to focus and pay attention, reasoning and judgment, and even visual perception. Now, those 5 I just mentioned, I bet you a couple of you are thinking, gee, I already have a few of those. And that's possible. But they're saying, remember, it needs to be, significantly impaired. So again, part of what we're going to share with this presentation is that, there's some opportunity for you as well. So don't fret. So dementia is caused by brain cell damage, which impairs the communication in the brain, and it may cause short-term memory loss. Many forms of dementia are progressive, meaning that the symptoms worsen as time goes by. So I mentioned vascular dementia earlier, and that is what both of my parents experienced. And do you know, I'm going to share something with you. This is fascinating. Listen up, ladies. Do you know that a common cause of stroke in women is called beauty parlor stroke syndrome. Yes, I kid you not. Beauty parlor stroke syndrome. Yes. So this is back in the early 90s they discovered this. And they basically determined that the angle that your neck is in while they're washing your hair in the sink can actually sever an artery that might not actually be detected for up to 2 weeks after it's severed. Now think about that. That's some pretty serious stuff. So remember that cute couple I showed you at the beginning? Do you know that one of my mom's favorite pastimes was going to the beauty parlor? She went twice a week. I know some of you are like, twice a week? No, you know, you just got to let them do what they like to do, you know, and she went twice a week. And I'm going to tell you something. This is very, very important. Listen up. For those of you who believe in heaven, there is no doubt to me that it is a spectacular place. And the reason is my mom skipped her hair appointment that day to go to heaven. I kid you not. She passed away at the very time she should have been at her hair appointment. So gotta love her. So let me tell you about that. You are going to get a link to that particular research about beauty parlor stroke syndrome. And let me tell you the conclusion around that. The hazard of, this is the conclusion, the hazard of sustained hyperextension and rotation on vertebral artery flow has not been previously addressed in the elderly population who are disproportionately at risk for cerebrovascular disease. The following cases suggest that every adult should be made aware of the potential dangers of extreme and sustained neck posture during activities of daily living. Wow. Fascinating. So do I need to say more? When I encourage you, we're going to talk later about our class Digital Dementia being offered on May 16th. It is a live class. It will not be recorded. So you have to go to it then. The people who are interested in offering it in the future are going to charge. This class is going to be free. There's food and it's going to be fun. So I encourage you to bring a friend, and I'll share a little bit more about how to register for that. But in Digital Dementia, that is for the younger population. That's for us. That's for all of us who use cell phones and technology. And that's for all of us who are starting to have this neck posture issue. So just queuing you up for that. So, you know, they say that there's no cure for dementia. You know, I always have hope that things look different there. There are treatment options that are available and a few prevention strategies, and some of them are cardiovascular risk factors, which we're going to cover, doing, you know, of course, physical exercise and diet. And we also recommend, you see brain span in the corner of the slide. That is a new test that's out with evidence-based research supporting it. We're going to talk a lot more about that later, but also a very nice possibility for a prevention strategy. Look at this beautiful lady. So Alzheimer's is a degenerative disease, and it's the most common form of dementia. And it causes problems with memory, thinking, and behavior. Over 5 million Americans live with Alzheimer's, and 1 in 10 people over the age of 65 has Alzheimer's. Early onset Alzheimer's affects approximately 200,000 Americans under the age of 65. Now, I need to share a scary statistic, or actually, it's not a statistic, a scary scenario I encountered just about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was at a memory care community. If you don't know what that is, that's where people go who are having memory challenges. And they live there because those people have more skills in many ways to help them. And while I was there, I learned that they just moved in a new resident into memory care who is 54 years old. Now, there's a few of you on this class right now, and you're older than 54, and you're grateful that you're not that person, but that's really important, something to think about. So, you know, minor changes actually occur in the brain long before these symptoms show up. So some of the prevention factors that they talk about is overconsumption of fats and carbohydrates are at the heart of Alzheimer's epidemic. Now, I'm going to tell you something. It's very important to have good fats, and the not good fats are the ones your French fries are probably cooked in, or your potato chips. You also want to avoid certain things. I got to tell you, things like vegetable oil and canola oil, they're really not the best for you. You want to look at things like avocado oil, coconut oil, different options like that. This isn't about teaching you about that right now, so I got to move a little quicker. But I also learned something important, though. You think about carbohydrates. They're saying, you know, carbohydrates are really at the heart of this disease. Let me tell you about carbohydrates. If you don't know this, carbohydrates turn into sugar. And sugar is absolutely terrible for this disease. So, and the saddest thing is that I actually learned that some of the last taste buds that as you age stick around, which I believe that can be reversed to, just I know that through some of my work I do in my practice. But actually some of the last taste buds is sugar, the sweet taste buds. So there's like this over attraction to sweets, and yet it's the very thing that impacts the brain so heavily in this arena. And did you know that the risk of Alzheimer's is doubled in type 2 diabetics? There's some more to think about. And heart disease also increases your risk of dementia. And as arterial stiffness is associated with the buildup of what they call beta amyloid plaque in your brain, that's a hallmark of Alzheimer's disease. So a lot to think about. You know, we always talk about diet. We're going to talk more about it. And I'm sorry, but it's just the truth. So let's talk about stroke. So how many of you out there were a fan of Luke Perry? And you were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he died. He was so young. And I'm going to tell you, now he had a serious stroke. I mean, a big one, massive, okay? Stroke is considered an attack on the brain. And it occurs by an obstruction of blood flow to the brain. And it causes brain cells to die from a lack of oxygen. So depending on where the brain has the stroke determines the effects, okay? So basically, if one side of the brain controls the opposite side of the body, then different functions could be impaired. So let's talk about what that would look like. So if somebody has a stroke occurring on the right side of the body, on the right side of the brain, I mean, it may lead to paralysis on the left side of the body. It could lead to vision issues. Maybe their behavior style changes, and memory loss could be in the picture. And then a stroke occurring on the left side of the brain may lead to paralysis on the right side of the body, speech and language problems. They may have more slow and cautious behavior style going forward, and of course, memory loss as well. So let's talk about some stroke facts, because this is, there's a really big fact in this. So 800,000 new or reoccurring strokes happen annually. That's a kind of a big number. But did you know that up to 80% of strokes can be prevented? Now that's kind of cool. I mean, to know that, right? Guess what? One of them is healthy diet, of course. You know, reducing carbs, increasing the good fats, limiting salt. You know, we actually have a program that I use in my practice to help lower cholesterol, blood pressure, and blood glucose levels in 3 weeks. I call it my metabolic syndrome Cliff Notes program. And it does a great deal of assistance in this diet area in just 3 weeks. And actually, I encourage people to do before and after blood work so I can prove it to them, because I'm that confident in the results that it'll give. Another thing about strokes, right? We talk about what can be done to prevent them. How about exercise or movement, right? Walking, rebounding. You know what rebounding is? It's jumping on those little mini trampolines. By the way, get a good one. Don't get the one at Walmart. It'll give you joint pain, and then you'll be mad at me, and it'll be in your garage sale, and you'll wish you never got one. Got to get a good one. But also running, swimming, weight training, all that's super good to help with this prevention. And then we have, no smoking. Smoking promotes clotting. And clotting actually makes the blood thicker and it hardens the arteries. And so that's one of the reasons why you wouldn't want to be smoking too much. And then we want to manage our alcohol intake because that can raise your blood pressure. And then a couple other stats. Stroke is the 5th leading cause of death in the US. So didn't know if you knew that. I could tell you the other 4, but it'll take too long. And then stroke is the leading cause of adult disability in the US. And again, I've seen some very young people in some of these communities that are there because of stroke and the loss of some of their functions there. So let's talk about how do we help with kids, right? Neurological issues with kids. As a parent or a grandparent, you probably want the best for them, children and grandchildren. So let's talk about how could that look a little bit different? Because there's some things I'm going to share with you that you probably don't realize could be causing a neurological issue in a child that you know. So one is making sure they have proper nutrition. And one way to do that is providing local and organic produce to reduce the intake of pesticides. Yes, pesticides and neurological conditions go hand in hand. Not a good thing. Also, ensure that your child is drinking plenty of water to remove toxins from that water. My goodness, if you live near me in Plano, Texas, water is not a good thing in this town. It's really got a lot of stuff in it. And we have a water system that we recommend, and we'll share the link to that. It can be it's an awesome tool, and it can be installed anywhere across the country. They have a free installation program and all that. So we'll share that in our links. And then another thing from a nutrition standpoint for kids is have them avoid the heavily processed foods. All the stuff they like to eat, the Twinkies, the breads, the pizzas, the pastas, candy bars. That's not good for them. Trans fats aren't good for them. The high sugars, artificial sweeteners, all of that really challenging for their brains to run properly. Look at some of the attention deficit issues that kids have today. Another thing important to avoid neurological issues for kids is a toxin-free environment. We have a cleaner we recommend that's super value, and it's called Thieves. It's from Young Living Essential Oils. We will send a link to you on that if you're not familiar with it, because you need to understand there are toxins in your cleaners in the home. They're getting on you, they're getting in your kids, they're getting in your pets. And it impacts them. It soaks up through the pads of your feet, your pet's feet, your kids' feet. The kids are crawling on the floor. Serious situation there with toxic cleaners. Another thing to do is avoid fabrics treated with flame retardants. Those are really bad also from a neurological standpoint. So natural fiber furnitures are a better way to go. And then let's talk about skin irritants. Kids out in the sun a lot, you probably put sunscreen on them. There are some chemicals in standard sunscreens that are not helpful. So we will share a link again around some sunscreen that's more helpful, doesn't have those chemicals in it. And then let's talk about dentistry for a second. There's a really big connection, the dental to mental connection. And many people don't realize it. Out on my website, accesscompletewellness.com, if you put in the search bar tooth chart, TOOTH, tooth chart, you will see a chart of teeth. And you can actually look up any tooth that you have had trouble with, and it will show you how it corresponds with other body parts that you will probably also have had trouble with and didn't know the connection. So basically, dentistry. If someone out there talking, I need you to mute. See if I can mute you. I will attempt to mute you. There we go. I'm going to mute everybody again. All right. We were talking about dentistry. So holistic dentists, there is one in the area. Again, if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we use Dr. Daniela Petrie. She's at easydentaltx.com. She's in the McKinney area. She can do a lot of work. You would be surprised at the things that she can help with, using some natural therapies that regular dentists will tell you can't be treated, and that just simply isn't the case all the time. Be sure with dentistry, right, that with your kids that you don't overuse fluoride. I know everybody, they drilled in their brains from kid time frame, fluoride's great for you. It is not great for everyone. I'll just leave it at that. And then avoid mercury fillings. If you have mercury fillings, well, you've already got them. But let me share just a small little tidbit of info. Mercury fillings aren't good for you. You should get them out. They could be the cause of a lot of underlying disease that anybody that you know might be suffering. And I'm going to just say this. I'll leave you with this thought. Have you ever noticed the care that your dental staff takes with handling mercury? Like they're really careful with it. Remember, like when you were a kid and you wanted to play with the broken thermometer, but everyone's like, no, don't play with that. That's serious, right? So they've known for a long time mercury's not great for us to be exposed to in great quantities. So why would you have it in your head? Just something to think about. So mercury fillings, I encourage you to move those out. And by the way, if you're not in the Dallas area, we can provide you a link to more holistic or biological dentists around the country, so we can get you hooked up there. Also, from a healthy development standpoint for kids, they've been encouraging frequent exercise for a while. Isn't it sad that, like, there was a time like our parents couldn't get us in the house from playing, and now they have to have commercials to tell kids to go out and play? I mean, that's like there's something wrong with this picture. But again, incorporating brain gym exercises, and we're going to be offering a 12-week program in the future. It's good for all of us, not just kids. It's especially good for us adults. Anyone who wants to improve vision, balance, or movement, we have a sign-up waiting list for the next offering of that. And then the last thing is encouraging kids from, and again, neurological standpoint, limit your screen time on TV, computers, cell phones. Many of you don't even realize that there is electromagnetic fields coming off of your cell phones and all of your electrical devices. It's harmful. It's harmful to the brain. And then, we're going to be doing a series in the future of Sleep 101. But you're going to learn that if you don't know this already, the blue light coming off your computers, television, cell phones, not good for you from a sleep perspective, that's for sure. And you don't want to be on these devices about an hour before you go to bed. And there is a setting on these devices that you can set so that you can still look at your device, but the blue light emitted from the screen is not as damaging. And then there's also electromagnetic field devices that can help keep your body balanced so that neurological concerns don't come up from electromagnetic fields. So we'll share that link. And if anybody who's from this call, from this presentation today, if there's any of those that you're interested in, we'll give you the website to the site that offers them. And then if you come back to us, we will give you a 15% off discount of anything you see on that site. So just keep that in mind. And so let's move on. We covered the kids. So how do we cover the adults? There's a number of lifestyle habits that one can adopt to maintain brain health. They're going to sound kind of familiar. Sounds like what we just talked about for the kids in many ways. But if we broke down the lifestyle changes into 4 categories, one would be physical health and exercise, diet and nutrition, of course, cognitive activity, and then social engagement. And these categories have been shown to reliably help keep your body and brain healthy and to potentially reduce your risk of cognitive decline. Research has even found that combining activities of these different categories has a greater impact in maintaining or improving brain health than any single activity. So in other words, one activity isn't enough. Just eating right isn't enough. Just being a social butterfly isn't enough. Where you got to pull all these things together. So we're going to discuss and incorporate ways around these lifestyle changes now. So of course, right? Break a sweat. You know, a lot of studies have found an association between physical activity and reduced risk of cognitive decline. So it's important to try and engage in regular physical activity and cardiovascular exercise to elevate, heart rate, blood flow, and oxygen to the brain. Physical activities can be both mentally and socially engaging. So a few things, right? You can walk with a friend, take a dance class, maybe join an exercise group, go golfing, tennis lessons, maybe join a community pool, walking your dog. Dogs like having some exercise. Go for a bike ride, right? So the World Health Organization actually recommends that adults 18 and up would do at least 150 minutes of exercise a week. So that would look like aerobic activity, maybe performed in at least 10-minute sessions, and at least 2 days a week of muscle strengthening activities to be included as well. So some tips on incorporating physical activity daily. So for instance, leisure time activities, walking, dancing, gardening, that works, right? Hiking, swimming. And then transportation. What about walking and cycling somewhere as opposed to always taking the car? And then last but not least, household chores. Now I know that wasn't like your most exciting idea of breaking a sweat, but vacuuming, cleaning windows, dusting, all of that kind of contributes to that movement and exercise piece. So let's talk about, we really can teach an old dog a few new tricks, right? So continuing education during any stage of life is going to help reduce your risk of cognitive decline. So some great resources. One is like going to your local library. And, this doesn't have to cost money, right? There's ways to work around it. There's community centers, recreation centers, local college might have some libraries for you to check out. And then there's a ton of things online. My goodness. The topics are endless. So find something of interest or look for a local class, something to, pique your interest there. And here's some ideas that, we just threw out just to give you something to think about. You can check your local craft store or home improvement store for classes. They've always got some fun stuff going on. You can look for books on cooking or making your own kombucha tea, teaching yourself to sew, knit, or crochet. I got to tell you, I have an uncle. Now, he did pass away about 2 years ago, I guess. He was crocheting up till the end. Super sharp man. I think he lived to either be late 80s or maybe early 90s, but awesome brain health. Anyway, also look for local church club activities. Quilting's really popular in some areas. Gardening. There's a website, you're going to get it. It's called Skillshare.com. They have an online group you can join, and there's actually like up to like over 19,000 classes that they offer through that. So categories are, include things like, but they're not limited to, but things like design, writing, technology, photography. So there's like a whole bunch of things you can do to, again, help with this prevention of some of these brain decline concerns. All right, so there's lots of reasons to kick the habit, right? And decreasing risk of cognitive decline is one more reason to kick the habit of smoking. Evidence shows that smoking increases the risk of cognitive decline. So here's some tips to help you out if you are a smoker or you know someone that's a smoker. You got to find your reason. And it could be avoiding cognitive decline. Or maybe it's your kids or grandkids. I mean, come on, find that reason, right? Get prepared, going cold turkey. I don't know many that's worked for, but choose your method and get a support system in place. Maybe a friend that you can call, when you're having trouble fighting the urge. Another thing you could do, another tip, is replacement therapy. So maybe that nicotine gum, nicotine withdrawal symptoms, something like that. It helps with fighting that. And find some new ways to reduce stress. And then avoid triggers, especially the first week of trying to quit. Some people, maybe they associate smoking and drinking, so maybe you don't want to drink that week either. Or maybe you usually smoke after a meal. Maybe try taking a walk after your meal instead. Now, of course, we got to take care of the heart, right? Last month, we did a great class. These are available on our website, accesscompletewellness.com. That was heart disease and oral health. And boy, did we learn a lot. But we're going to learn some new stuff now. So studies actually show that risk factors for cardiovascular disease and stroke, which are things like obesity, high blood pressure, and diabetes, negatively impact your cognitive health. So protect your brain by protecting your heart, by maintaining your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your blood sugar within the recommended limits, and to sustain a healthy weight. So, of course, what do we said all along, right? A healthy diet and regular exercise are key to heart protection. So let's learn a little bit about the heart and some of these factors, right? So cholesterol. Cholesterol is a substance that's in the blood, and it's actually needed. Now, most people don't know that. It's necessary for the body to build cells. But if you have too much, it's harmful. And just by the way, stress can lead to high cholesterol too. There was actually a research study on that. It involved race car drivers who were under extreme stress, and their cholesterol remained high up to 3 weeks after a race when their body was still trying to come down off that adrenaline high. Another one, cholesterol comes from animal-based foods such as meat and dairy. And so it's made actually in the body, in the liver. Okay, so again, it's an important thing that you want. There's two types of cholesterol, and you've probably heard of this. One's your LDL. Most people don't know what that stands for, low density lipoproteins. That's your bad cholesterol. Yeah, that's the one that builds up in the arteries. And then you got your HDLs. That's your little happy ones, high density lipoproteins. And they help remove the LDLs, so like the guys with the black hats and the white hats or whatever, right? So check with your doctor on your optimal cholesterol range and make sure you're keeping that in check. Again, we've got a program that in 3 weeks we can do a lot to move those numbers. And then let's talk about blood pressure, very important. Blood pressure comes in two numbers, right? Systolic and diastolic. So your systolic is your upper number. And that tells you how much pressure that your blood is exerting against your artery walls when the heart beats. And then you got your diastolic blood pressure. That's your lower number. And that indicates how much pressure your blood is exerting against your artery walls while the heart is resting between beats. So typically, your systolic pressure, or the top number, is the more important number, usually. Now, blood pressure is measured by what they call meaning millimeters of mercury, which is a pressure gauge. And normal levels for blood pressure, your systolic or your higher upper number, it usually should be around 120. The diastolic number, a little less than 80. So you've always heard 120 over 80, right? So that's what we're talking about there. So let's move on to safety. Safety is super, super important. I bet you can imagine that if your brain gets injured, it's probably going to have a risk of cognitive decline, right? That's a no-brainer. Ha, right? Okay, so it's important to take safety precautions when possible. So wearing a seatbelt, that should be a no-brainer. That should be like a given. Using a helmet when riding a bike, also very important. And take steps to prevent falls. So let's talk about what are some common factors that can contribute to falls. Inactivity is a common cause of reduced balance, coordination, and flexibility. And also poor vision can make tripping hazards and obstacles more difficult to see. So some prescriptions and over-the-counter meds can also cause dizziness or dehydration, which can also contribute to falls. So it's super, super important that you check your home environment and make sure that you make simple modifications. This is some of the basic things I learned about my parents in the very early parts of the journey. Example, my mom, and not only did she love to look great, man, her house was immaculate. Her house was gorgeous, right? And she loved to have these little throw rugs all over. And, she didn't want to hear that those needed to be out of the way. So here they're recommending, tacking it down so you avoid the chance of tripping. But honestly, home health agencies, they'll ask you to just like pick it right up. They don't even want it on the floor. So again, this is all about inactivity, vision concerns, balance concerns, coordination. I cannot recommend enough our Train the Brain 12-week program that we're going to be offering later in the year. We're going to have a waiting list out on our website where you can get your name on there because the space will be limited for it. But what we're going to do is actually teach you brain drills to assist you with improving your vision, balance, and movement. So we're very, very, very excited about that. And by the way, I told you we're going to talk about brain span a little later in the presentation. We're almost done, actually. One of the things behind brain span is it actually has an opportunity, again, evidence-based research for concussion resiliency, improving concussion resiliency. Now, you'd want to have that already in the works before you fall, right? You get that, right? You don't want to hit your head and then go, gee, I should have done that concussion resiliency program. Because the bottom line is accidents happen. And you never know. You want to be protected. All right, so not getting enough sleep, that, due to conditions like insomnia or sleep apnea can result in problems with memory and thinking. Insomnia can be caused by a psychiatric or a medical condition. It could be caused by unhealthy sleeping habits, specific substances, or even certain biological factors. So some examples of medical conditions that might cause insomnia are things like nasal or sinus allergy issues, arthritis, asthma, chronic pain, low back pain. And so to get a better night's sleep, again, we're going to offer Sleep 101 in the future, very soon, a few months from now, as a webinar. But try creating a bedtime routine. That's one of the recommendations. So we talked about avoid using your computer or phone about an hour before bedtime. Try incorporating a few restful stretches into your bedtime routine. Maybe taking a warm bath or a hot shower can be super, super relaxing. Meditation or prayer, also a great opportunity there. Reading a book can calm your mind. And then, of course, gosh, don't be drinking caffeinated beverages at night. That's just not a good one for you. Now, some studies report an association between depression and an increased risk of cognitive decline. So managing stress can help reduce symptoms of depression and anxiety or other mental health concerns. There are many techniques that you can try for managing stress. One is physical activity, which releases the feel-good endorphins. Another is deep breathing, which lowers cortisol levels. In the world that I work in my practice, there's something I can do called a stress reset pathway. And it's basically resetting and rebalancing the cortisol levels and retraining the body to respond to the stress differently. We don't have to be running from the tiger day in and day out. And yet, unfortunately, that's a bit like what our society is like. Yoga also combines movement and breathing together for really good stress reliever. So try a relaxing form, though, like restorative yoga. Meditation teaches mindfulness and of course prayer, and can have a positive effect on mood. Guided visualizations are a great way to help you start. I actually use a technique like that in my practice, and actually am moving towards offering some additional classes around that. I think already getting some really positive feedback from the idea. So, and how about essential oils? Aromatherapy, great way to put some calming scents, scents, into your nighttime environment. Lavender is a good one. Bergamot, frankincense, geranium, all really, really good ones. I recommend Young Living essential oils. We will put a link again to that as well in the links if you don't know already how to get your own. But it's very, very important that you know the quality of what you're getting. I'll just say this. I mean, if whatever you're buying at another store might say not for internal use, then you don't really want to put it in a diffuser and breathe it now, do you? Because that's going into your lungs. So just some food for thought. And then journaling. Journaling is another great stress reliever. So getting involved, very important. Being socially engaged to help support your brain. So some ideas to get more social interaction, find ways to be a part of your local community, volunteer at a library. You could join a club where you teach English or read to children. Sometimes local parks need gardening volunteers. And animal shelters, boy, are they an awesome way to, kind of relieve stress. They are always looking for animal caretakers. You can join a choir, start a book club, and by all means, challenge yourself. Goodness, super important to sharpen your mind. So try learning a new skill, right? Work on a puzzle, participate in strategic games such as bridge, maybe learn how to play an instrument, do something artistic, painting, scrapbooking, reading different style of books, or journaling, or even writing poetry. And of course, you knew we had to talk about diet again, right? Okay, so super important, eating a well-balanced meal. So there's a couple of things I'm going to share with you. They talk about the Mediterranean diet. I'll cover that. And then a diet called DASH. And they believe that these two can contribute to risk reduction. A Mediterranean diet is a heart-healthy diet, helps us protect the brain. It incorporates different principles of healthy eating, typically found around the areas of the Mediterranean Sea, thus the Mediterranean diet. They focus a lot on fruits, vegetables, nuts, and grains. People will say replace butter, but honestly, I love butter. I think butter is awesome for you in organic form. But also use healthy fats, olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil. And be very, very careful. Certain fats are not exactly the only ones you need for your brain, though, right? The important, super, super important fats for your brain, especially omega-3s. So you want to be careful with that. So I've seen on my brain span tests, vegetarians doing all the right things in their thoughts, and their brain span score comes back rather low, simply because they're not engaging the right omegas. So omega-3 really important. You want to reduce your red meat intake if it's not grass-fed. Why is it? Well, remember that old thought, you are what you eat, right? So if your cow is eating grains, which aren't the best for us, they're inflammatory food, and they'll often cause an inflammatory response in the gut or joints. So when you eat the cow that ate the grains, you're indirectly getting the omega-6s, which are not as helpful. So you better, I'm not saying anything against red meat. I'm a good red meat eater myself, but I am saying that it's important to get the omega-3s. So try to get the grass-fed beef. When you cook, use herbs to flavor your food rather than salt. And eat fish a few times a week. I'm going to tell you, tilapia, cod, haddock, catfish, salmon, albacore, tuna, mackerel, sardines. But I'm going to let you know right now, 96% of you on this class presentation right now are probably low in omega-3s. And that's just what the research is showing. So let's talk about that DASH diet real quick. Dietary approaches to stop hypertension. That's the DASH diet. So they're all about foods low in saturated fats and in total fat and salt, eating more fruits and vegetables. You know, again, they talk about eating whole grains, poultry, fish, and nuts. I'm good with most of that. But, you know, you do want to watch the grains, not too many grains. You know, it's good to have them. I totally agree that you should have them, but not too many, especially if you have a high inflammatory response in your body. If you don't know if you have a high inflammatory response, that brain span test is one way to check that. And then you also want to limit your intake of sweets and sugary beverages on this DASH diet. Another thing that's super important, you know, we've talked about supplements, right? Fish oil, I've mentioned a lot of how you can put fish in your diet, but honestly, some of us are so deficient. I worked with one person, and that particular person was going to have to eat 15 servings of fish a week. Now, that goes a long way from the 2 I just mentioned in the DASH program, right? So, you know, sometimes you really do need supplementation. It is very difficult with the way foods are processed today, the way they're grown today. It's very difficult for us to get the proper nutrients. And so we try to help offer programs to help people get the right nutrients for them, because what's right for you is not right for me. And just because one a day was right for somebody on that commercial doesn't mean it's right for the next person. So we all need to look at ourselves uniquely, because after all, we're unique. Magnesium, another really good supplement for the brain, necessary for good sleep. And if you don't get rest and rejuvenation, you know what? We already talked about that. Your brain's not going to work so well. Now, there's a powerful antioxidant, resveratrol, and it comes in deep purple, red colored fruits. So some studies show that helps with the prevention of the deterioration of the hippocampus part of the brain. That's where memories are stored. Ginkgo biloba, also a popular supplement, helps boost brain power and increases blood flow to the brain. Rhodiola rosea, powerful supplement in Chinese medicine to promote healthy brain function. And phosphatidylserine, yes, say that 5 times real fast. It's type of fat compound that's found in the brain. And some studies suggest that taking that supplement can actually help preserve brain health. But again, if you're not absorbing some of these things either, that can be an indication or a problem for you. So just so you know, we have ways to kind of help you figure out if those things are happening. We do it in a very cost-effective way as well. So let's move on. We're almost done here. We're going to wrap up with resources for you to try. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to share with you this page, and there's the resources. Don't feverishly write these down. We are going to send you these links. But I just wanted you to see, we've got the links for over 19,000 classes, how you can volunteer in places. I love this one about online brain games. Super, super good stuff. Remember some of what we talked about, right? It's about engaging a few things. This is a strategy. It's not just one thing fixes it all. So please, I hope that you haven't heard that in what I've shared today. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let you know that I've basically concluded, per se, the official brain health presentation. However, what I want you to know is at the end of what I'm sharing right here, we are going to run a short 4-minute video on that brain span brain health assessment program that I've shared and let you watch that. After that, I'm going to look and see if there's any questions on the chat. And so for anyone who feels like they don't want to watch that little 4-minute video on brain span, I wanted you to see the Calm Your Anxiety. That's our next class. I encourage you to go to accesscompletewellness.com, and on that homepage, scroll down to our upcoming events. You can go register now for Calm Your Anxiety. That will be another webinar. But very, 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 very important is this digital dementia. That's a live event where any one of you, notice how young that person is, any one of you using cell phones and technology, you need to see what's happening, what the research is starting to show about your younger generations. This is a live event. It will not be recorded. It is May 16th. The information is also at accesscompletewellness.com. And on that homepage, they're going to offer food. It's going to be fun. You're going to get some brain drills. I'm excited to offer you brain drills. And it's free. Yes. So this is the one I mentioned that there's some other places interested in us offering this, but they're going to charge. And I'm disappointed in that, but it's their venue, and and they're not going to give food. So just mentioning that your best option is probably this one on May 16th. I am going to now share the brain span program. Again, it's less than 4 minutes. Just let you watch it for just a minute, and then we'll go to questions and answers.
Optimizing the health of the brain is the future of healthcare. Brain health is the gateway to produce optimal health for the entire body. The ability to measure, track, and improve brain function and key blood biomarkers has profound implications for your overall health. BrainSpan is revolutionizing preventive brain health by providing a complete blood profile that reflects both cellular health and systemic inflammation and connects these metrics to brain function. The assessment provides vital data and education as part of a routine wellness visit for the student, athlete, mom, or business professional, or can be used to assist with the management and prevention of many specific conditions, including those of the nervous, circulatory, musculoskeletal, or immune systems. Fundamentally, all chronic disease will benefit from first optimizing the metrics critical to brain-body health. In addition, mothers and infants will reap dramatic health benefits throughout pregnancy and breastfeeding due to enhanced fetal brain development and improved maternal health. With the BrainSpan Neural Health Assessment, you will receive a detailed nutritional profile that determines cellular and inflammatory health of the brain and body, and links these areas to specific aspects of cognitive function. Valid, precise, and actionable are the hallmarks of the BrainSpan report. The Neural Health Assessment is simple, yet thorough. It is generated from 2 brief steps activated from a small kit. 1. A patient-performed finger stick, providing a few droplets of blood on a card. And 2. A brief web-based cognitive function assessment on a touchscreen device. Within 2 to 3 days of processing, an electronic report is available that elegantly illustrates the status and relationships between nutrition, inflammation, and brain function. Specific information on the omega-3 index and the omega-6 omega-3 ratio, among other indices, help you avoid being in the dark when it comes to quality and quantity of specific dietary nutrients. The results of the cognitive function assessment are described to include the areas of attention, processing speed, and memory, linking them back to the nutritional metrics and specific lifestyle recommendations, making them more meaningful and motivating. A wellness summary is also provided so you can easily understand what your results really mean for you today and for your future if you don't take steps to improve it. Testing occurs at baseline, 3 months, 6 months, and then annually, ensuring the scores move and remain in the green or optimal zone. This represents the highest level of both nervous system and cellular nutritional health, providing lower levels of inflammation and improved resilience to chronic diseases, pain, and injury. Scores in the red or poor zone are associated with poor function, a high inflammatory state with possible increased risk of future diseases and premature cognitive decline. Tracking and keeping scores in the green year to year, you will improve total mind-body health and actually change the trajectory of cognitive decline over time, promoting a healthy, resilient life across your entire brain span. And this translates to an overall healthier lifespan. Lowering total body inflammation and optimizing brain function is essential for optimal health. And now, with clinically valid metrics from BrainSpan, this can be achieved with precision. BrainSpan. Measure, track, optimize.
All righty. So what I'm going to do is I want to leave this slide up for just a second, and that will allow you to email us if you have additional questions. But back to BrainSpan for just a second. Some of the pressing questions that might be there. One, there is lab work involved in the BrainSpan report. And the lab work, there's also an online cognitive test, and then a 30-minute consultation to go over the results and make recommendations for a protocol. And the cost of all of that is $199. So just so I can make sure you all know that up front. It is recommended to be repeated about 3 months into it. And to repeat the test, again, lab work is involved. Is $110 to repeat the lab work. So what you'll get is each time you repeat the test, you will have each test will be measured next to each other. You'll be able to see the comparative improvement. And of course, each time you work through it, we would, obviously, hopefully decrease whatever protocol you were having to follow. And then for those of you who may not feel the need to do the BrainSpan test itself, we are offering a few nutrition opportunities. One is a little bit of a do-it-yourself whole body nutrition assessment where you get reports that shows your body system progress that you can measure from month to month or however often you want to. That's actually free that we offer. And then if you want some consultation time with me to do that whole body assessment, nutrition assessment, and actually address any chief health complaints, the cost of that is $79. And then our latest service, we are so excited. We now actually have the opportunity to take your lab work from your doctor and also input that into our tool and work with you to give you actually supplementation to help you address anything in your blood work that you might want to do in a more natural manner as opposed to perhaps some kind of pharmaceutical. So those are just some options. You can reach out to us if any of that is of interest. I'm going to go now and see, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to look and see if I have any chats. And I don't think I see any, unless I'm missing them. So if maybe I'll unmute and see if anybody had any questions. I don't see anything in the chat. So is there anybody who had a question that I might have missed on the chat, or are everybody good? All right, everybody's kind of quiet out there. Well, I want to thank you all for your time. It was an absolute pleasure having you participate, and I encourage you to go sign up for some more free classes that we're offering at accesscompletewellness.com. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.